Hello everybody, it's V here, and this time I don't have another episode of Are We Cool Yet ready for you, but I do have a single SCP that I think is pretty cool. And actually, surprisingly for me, this one is not a safe class SCP, so let's get into it. SCP-8854 by GeminidStrix from the SCP Wiki. Containment Class Keter. Disruption Class Eki. Risk Class Warning. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-8854-1 instances are to be dismantled within 24 hours of manifestation. In the event of uncontrolled spills, Foundation engineering and cleanup crews are to be dispatched to contain and neutralize any residual environmental hazards. Priority is to be given to larger conglomerations of SCP-8854-1 as these accelerate propagation and increase ecological devastation. Due to the difficulty of dismantling -1 instances and reversing their associated damage, a proposal has been submitted to the Ethics Committee for the enactment of Protocol Burn the Masses. Until the Ethics Committee completes its review, instances of 8854-2 are not to be impeded in their work. Description: SCP-8854 is the spontaneous manifestation of anomalous oil wells, hereby designated SCP-8854-1, and anthropoid entities of animated crude oil, hereby designated SCP-8854-2. SCP-8854 events have been recorded across various petroleum-rich regions. Foundation engineering surveys indicate drilling depths of more than 15 kilometers, far surpassing conventional capabilities. Each -1 instance produces approximately 13 metric tons, or 95 barrels, per day. Harvested oil is not stored, refined, or transported. Reservoirs frequently overflow, causing extensive ecological damage and threatening the well-being of nearby civilians and Foundation personnel. The existence of one -1 instance increases the likelihood of successive instances manifesting. Therefore, immediate dismantling of -1 instances is to be given the highest priority. Despite lacking bone, musculature, or organs, -2 instances are nearly identical to humans. They imitate human workers with precision, carrying out drilling, extraction, and maintenance tasks at -1 sites. -2 instances are unable to interact with most physical objects, yet display full operational control over -1 mechanisms. Communication between -2 instances occurs through disjointed gurgling sounds. Attempts to translate this language has proven futile, although they universally disregard human presence, making communication between humans and -2 instances impossible regardless. No two -2 instances are morphologically identical. They manifest in disfigured or incomplete stages, absent limbs, distorted torsos, or sheared surfaces consistent with traumatic injury. The immediate demanifestation of -2 instances will follow the termination of their associated -1 instance. Addendum SCP-8854.1 Incident 8854-1 Date 28th of March 1988 Location Okwagume, Niger Delta, Nigeria. While SCP-8854 had been documented sporadically in multiple petroleum-rich regions prior to this date, the Okwagume manifestation represents one of the earliest large-scale containment challenges. In late March 1988, more than 100 -1 instances manifested approximately 12 kilometers west of Okwagume. Each well manifested 54 -2 instances on average. Due to previous outbreaks, Foundation personnel had designated the locale as high risk, allowing detection of the anomaly within 14 hours of initial manifestation. Despite expedited containment efforts, the Okwagume deconstruction effort was not without incident. 33 of the manifested wells suffered from pressure buildups and blowouts during plugging and abandonment, placing dozens of Foundation personnel in critical conditions and resulting in numerous fatalities, significantly slowing containment efforts. Witness Statement. Foundation Field Agent.
The oil people had been working non-stop for days. They didn't sleep. They labored all day, all night until they collapsed. They gathered around those who couldn't keep working, kneeling around their bodies. They'd clasp their palms together and bow their heads like they were praying. Some moaned out and made garbled noises. Little did they know, all that effort was meaningless. Just the day before the incident, all those workers were jumping into the air, waving their hands about and gurgling non-stop. They were hugging one another and patting each other on the back. The derrick had just only started gushing, but they were so overjoyed. They had finally struck liquid gold. I actually felt bad that we had to close it up the next day. The moment we started plugging, I knew all hell was going to break loose. The pressure built up almost immediately. The derrick just disintegrated, sending steel beams flying everywhere. I saw one of the workers take a direct hit. Its body was split in two, but it kept moving. It just dragged its upper half towards the wreckage. Oil leaked out of its severed torso, but it was hell-bent on repairing the derrick. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Some of them collapsed, choking on hydrogen sulfide in the air. The others gathered around them, beating on their backs to help them clear their airways. Their skin bubbled like it was boiling, and then ruptured into clouds. Moments later, when everything calmed down, the survivors looked distraught. Some held their heads in their hands, shuddering. That sound they were making is stuck in my head. It was just a monotonous bubbling. They had to have been crying. I think I even saw drops of oil falling from their eyes. After just a while, they went right back to the wreckage, working as if nothing happened. I've never seen anything so relentless, so disturbingly determined to keep going, even when the cost was their own lives. I think the part that scared me the most was that all of the ones that died were just replaced the next day. I'm probably going to request reassignment. The number of reports we're getting concerning accidents with these oil people is getting overwhelming. I don't want to see one of them wailing at the sky while desperately clinging onto a hitless corpse again. It's just too real.
Due to the relentless efforts of -2 instances and the continual manifestation of new -1 instances, plugging and abandonment efforts lasted for 8 months, during which 132 additional wells had manifested. Travel to and from the impacted area was restricted, and local populations were amnesticized and relocated due to the lasting soil and groundwater contamination in the area after the cleanup efforts had concluded. By the conclusion of the Incident 8854-1, a total of 284 wells had appeared within Okwagume. During ongoing containment operations, further SCP-8854 manifestations were confirmed in the following locations: Nizhnevato District, Khanty-Mansi, Autonomous Okrug, Russia; Midlands, Texas, United States; Yangqing, Heilongjiang, China. Containment efforts for the aforementioned outbreaks did not conclude until early 1993. Addendum SCP-8854.2 Incident 8854-2 Date: the 6th of February 1989. Location: Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia. In early February 1989, the first offshore manifestation of SCP-8854 was reported. Local authorities noted extensive mortalities among marine fauna and a thick coating of oil along the coastline. Investigations traced the contamination to approximately 33 offshore oil platforms, each accompanied by an average of 130-2 instances, which had manifested roughly 43 hours prior to discovery. More than 2 million metric tons of oil had been extracted and spilled before Foundation intervention. At least 14 of the 33 initial manifestations had suffered well break blowouts, resulting in persistent leaks at the sea floor. Hydrocarbon contamination spread thousands of kilometers, poisoning plankton, shellfish, and fish eggs, and generating localized hypoxic zones as microbial activity increased to metabolize the oil. Public attention was deflected through Foundation cover protocols. NATO and local authorities coordinated these efforts, while a major oil conglomerate was designated the responsible party. Witness Statement: Foundation Field Agent.
The entire ocean was just brown. For miles, all I could see was the murky rainbow sheen of oil floating across the waves. On top of all that oil, thousands of fish, big and small, drifted along the surface. The platform wasn't any better. Every day at least 1 or 2 of the oil people died. One of them was crushed when the crane malfunctioned and dropped a bunch of steel pipes onto it. So many of them fell, just splashing into puddles when they hit the ground. I hate to even think about it, but I'm pretty sure that a few of them jumped. I remember seeing them days before. Some rocked back and forth in the fetal position, hugging themselves and trembling. They looked sad.
Despite these losses, Replacement-2 manifested within 24 hours, continuing extraction labor without interruption. Addendum SCP-8854.3 Incident 8854-3 Date: 27th of December 1990. Location: Basra, Kuwait. In late December 1990, an outbreak of -1 instances occurred in Basra, Kuwait, manifesting approximately 300 wells. This manifestation coincided with an active international military conflict between Iraq and Kuwait. Prior to their withdrawal from Kuwait in 1991, Iraqi forces set fire to dozens of the manifested wells. The resulting conflagration then spread across lakes of spilled oil, immolating -2 instances. Witness Statement: Foundation Field Agent.
The heat wasn't even the most terrifying part. As the fires raged, consuming everything in sight, all we could do was watch. The workers were screaming. You couldn't hear them over the sounds of the fires, but you could tell they were sprinting in all directions, mouths agape and their arms whipped at their bodies, desperately trying to put the fires out. So many of them just fell over, engulfed in flames. Their bodies boiled into nothingness. Those that weren't instantly vaporized were just melting, their features sloughed off like wax. One of them was nothing but legs, with its head and torso collapsed into itself. But it kept stumbling towards the derrick, until it finally melted into a puddle. By the time the fires finally subsided months later, there was nothing left. But it wasn't like everything was just burned away. There was no evidence of anything left. No debris, no oil, just ash. When all the oil people had melted away, all the wells just completely disappeared.
That's a weird accent.
Following the complete neutralization of the SCP-8854 event at Basra, the above incident has since prompted the submission of Protocol Burn the Masses to the Ethics Committee, proposing revised containment procedures. Addendum SCP-8854.4 Proposal Burn the Masses. Submitted by Senior Researcher Eli Williams. Date 31st of May, 1992. Reviewed by Ethics Committee. Problem Statement.
Containment of SCP-8854 manifestations has become increasingly untenable under current procedures. The spread of SCP-8854-1 and SCP-8854-2 instances now far outpaces the Foundation's plugging and abandonment efforts, presenting a unique challenge for Foundation engineers, who are unable to plug each -1 instance before the next critical failure occurs. High-risk events such as uncontrolled oil discharge, toxic gas accumulation, and secondary combustion have become increasingly prevalent during continued containment efforts. -2 instances' endless toil actively hinders ongoing containment efforts. Recent incidents have numbered more than 1,000 -2 instances on a single site. The ecological consequences of failing to contain large-scale outbreaks are severe, and the increasing frequency and magnitude of manifestations also pose a potential risk to the integrity of the Veil and the operational security of the Foundation itself.
Proposed solution.
As demonstrated by the events described in Incident 8854-3, the proposed revised containment protocol, hereby referred to as Burn the Masses, will authorize the controlled ignition of all -2 instances within impacted areas. Thus, the demanifestation of -1 instances will follow. Following termination of all -2 instances, Foundation cleanup operations will resume in accordance with the established containment procedures. This method of containment is projected to rapidly neutralize 8854 instances while simultaneously minimizing each further ecological impact.
Ethical considerations.
SCP-8854 instances present a profound ethical ambiguity. Superficially, -2 instances display many human characteristics. They labor cooperatively, communicate with each other, and demonstrate gestures reminiscent of mourning. Such displays may evoke guilt, revulsion, or trauma in personnel tasked with termination. However, closer studies suggest that -2 instances lack true human cognition. They exhibit no self-preserving instincts, only their compulsive labor. They do not retreat from danger and cannot be persuaded to abandon their work despite oncoming threats to their immediate well-being. Their apparent mourning is brief, averaging 5 to 6 minutes, and highly repetitive, suggesting programmed mimicry rather than genuine empathy. They have not been observed to form familiar, romantic, or social bonds. Their apparent attachments are mechanical, their persistence an endless simulation of work. The enactment of Burn the Masses may present an ethical quandary, but in reality prevents further propagation of SCP-8854 manifestations and mitigates ecological disaster.
To containment.8854 at SciPnet. From Eli.Williams at SciPnet. Subject: regarding updated containment protocols, SCP-8854.
It has been brought to my attention that there have been various Foundation personnel who have dissented from their current assigned duties. All field teams are reminded that while SCP-8854-2 instances may superficially resemble humans, they remain defined as non-sapient entities. Personnel are required to execute Protocol Burn the Masses with due diligence to prevent further propagation of SCP-8854 and associated ecological impacts. Termination of SCP-8854-2 instances will result in the immediate demanifestation of associated -1 instances. All post-protocol remediation, including cleanup, soil decontamination, and hydrocarbon containment, is to proceed with regard to established Foundation procedures. Remember, SCP-8854-2 instances are not human.
Signed, E. Williams, Senior Researcher.
And that was SCP-8854. I always really like the entries that focus heavily on like a lot of the internal stuff within the Foundation and that talk about, you know, the ethics of containment and whatnot. That's why one of my favorite entries for the SCP-9000 competition is the Trench, which I recently read through, and I think it might be a bit too big to read on this channel, but I highly recommend everyone to go read it. I'll put the link to that down below also. But in general, I really like these ones where you have this anomalous like entity or species that the Foundation has to deal with and has to find ways to first figure out if they have to treat it ethically, which in this case they have come to the conclusion that they just don't have to. And then moreover, the ways in which you deal with this seemingly not conscious but very human-like entity. You know, it's always some good fun. And I think this is one you can also look at from like a more symbolic side, and maybe it's more just talking about how workers in these like manual labor jobs are seen as replaceable and the kind of conditions that they have to like, you know, work in, and not like, it's not talking about the exact conditions, just more in general. Well, you know what I mean. I think that could be also a pretty fun way to look at this. In that case, senior researcher Eli's like response and the Foundation's response is kind of what you would expect if you're looking at this from like a class level, but I think that's a pretty surface level interpretation of this entry. Editing V here, something that I couldn't quite articulate while recording this, but I kind of want to add in here is that another reading on what this entry could like symbolically mean is that it could be like a manifestation of the greed and destruction created by the oil industry. And not to be a little bit woke here, but I think that's a pretty cool reading into it. And as an SCP, it also has a couple of things that I really like in my SCPs. I think people might have noticed that I really like locations and items, and these kinds of entries where the SCP is just simply a manifestation and all of the like subcategories are what we actually see. There's also on my list of really cool ones that I especially like. I think my biggest critique would be how intertwined it is with real world events, which I understand that to some people that's a big plus because it gives them that like connection to the real world like directly. But I think it's fine. I don't think it deducts any points, but I don't really see it as a big bonus. I would rather see them make up events, I think, rather than connecting them to like very specific events in the real world. But like I said, as a whole, I think I really like this entry, and this is also a pretty new one, I believe, because I found it while just scrolling through all of the entries listed by date of posting. So yeah, but that's it. That's it for me. This is probably one of the longer ones that I've read. I know we have read longer stuff on this channel, but my voice is hurting already because I don't talk to people in real life usually. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling now, even though rambling intros and outros are, I think, a pretty big part of our style here on JVSCP. Future me has probably already moved me into the corner of the screen and over... Wait, which way am I gonna be? Over there? I think over there are gonna be the names of our patrons and YouTube members. which we appreciate and love very, very much. Thank you all for supporting us, supporting JVSCP. Without your help, this channel wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be here like this, because this mic, I saved up money from our patrons and from our YouTube members. I saved up money from that, and I bought this mic, so that's why you're hearing me sound a lot better than when I was using my iPhone as a microphone. So yeah, thank you all very, very much. I really appreciate you. Yeah, okay, I think that's enough rambling for now, and I don't have anything else to plug, so yeah, I think that's it for now. I think I said that already. I'm repeating myself. I'm going insane. I'm slowly slipping from reality. But I'll see you next time. Bye bye.